People around the NFL are starting to show their true colors when it comes to Shedeur Sanders.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I'm your host, Kevin Borber. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so that way you don't miss out on a moment of the coverage. Let's talk about it. We knew it would happen. We knew it would happen eventually, right? We knew that once Shedeur Sanders got to the NFL sort of media, or got to the NFL circles, if you will, right? Because he's been in college football the past 4 years, that something would happen where it was like, okay, there's a little bias, but no one's going to say anything. And then it'll just be really obvious. And we got that really obvious moment. So here's what I mean. And this is according to Justina Anderson. She's one of the most respected NFL insiders in the NFL. She tweeted this today, and it was honestly a really long tweet. It was, I think when I copied and pasted it into a Google Doc, it was like almost 300 words, but it was worth every second of it. She goes, quote, "I am disappointed to hear that a quarterback's coach from a team drafting in the top 7 referred to Shedeur Sanders as coming off as brash and arrogant in his team interview and making his assessment known to a number of people per source. I'm purposely not naming the team as not to directly call the team out. I'm just sharing that this coach's personal assessment and this direct opposite from how Sanders came across to many reporters in his press conference with the media at the Combine. Sanders appeared to go out of his way to acknowledge multiple media members, regardless if they are recognizable or not. He seemed cordial, polite, witty, thoughtful, along with being confident, as many athletes are. Alternately, these observations were distinctly from how another quarterback prospect came off to some in the media last year in Indy." She also said, according to league sources, said quarterback coach seems to have issues with the culture, quote unquote culture, of athletes who have broad fame and financial success before entering the NFL, and in their opinion, appears to them to have a problem. Certain athletes, I'll leave it at that. So he has a problem with athletes being famous and having a brand, if you will, when they come into the draft. And here's a couple things, right? There's more to this. She kind of just talked about the bias that comes with Shedeur Sanders, and I'll get to that right now because I'm well aware of this, right? And it happened at Colorado. People don't like Deion Sanders, so they find ways to take knocks at Shedeur Sanders, Shiloh Sanders, Travis Hunter even, right? Now, does this coach really think, because here's the thing about this. Is there a coach out there that probably thinks Shedeur Sanders is arrogant or cocky? Yeah, I'm sure, right? Shedeur Sanders is confident. I think when Shedeur Sanders walks into a room, he immediately thinks he's the best player there. That being said, he has the film to back it up, right? It's not like he's just some backup player who's running his mouth and doing all this talking, right? Shedeur Sanders had one of the most efficient completion percentage-wise college football seasons in the sports history. 74 completion percentage, 6th all time. Right. Shedeur Sanders has more than proven that he is one of the best players in college football. He also has that swagger to him. He has a confidence to him. That's a part of his game, right? Shedeur Sanders, I think, is confident because 1, he's good, but 2, he's been raised to be confident. Look who his father is. His father is one of the most confident, most successful athletes we've ever seen. And while I think some people are rubbed the wrong way about Deion Sanders' confidence during his playing days, he seemed to do quite all right for himself, right? He won some Super Bowls, was a Hall of Famer, played in the MLB, is the College Football Hall of Fame. Like, I think it's this weird thing where it's like Shedeur Sanders is confident, or like too confident. It's basically arrogant in my eyes means he's saying he's cocky, too confident, right? At the end of the day, I think what a lot of these GMs, or in this case, quarterback coaches, want is for these guys to come into these interviews and be like, "Hi, I'm Shedeur Sanders. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'd love to play for your team. It would be my dream." And then they're going to ask him questions like, "Why should we draft you?" And they want Shedeur to say, "Well, I think in this past couple of years, I have really showed my improvement." In the game against Colorado State, I really showed my decision making. I really showed my ability to process a defense, right? They want him to be robotic. They want to take away the character, the flair, the excitement, the personality. And Shedeur Sanders is going to be unapologetically himself. And I'm not mad at that, right? If I'm a team drafting a quarterback, do I want someone who shies away from being themselves just because they think that's the right thing to do, in the sense that, like, assuming this person's not a bad person, right? If he's not a bad person, like if it's a bad person, obviously you don't want him to be himself. But do you want Shedeur Sanders to no longer be confident and just like conform and fit in, right? Isn't that what made him special, right? Shedeur Sanders was a 4-star recruit that went to Jackson State, and obviously his dad was there, but he went to an HBCU, an FCS program, and was more than fine with doing something different. Then hits the transfer portal, highly sought after recruit or transfer if he wanted to be, right? He probably could have gone almost anywhere, I would say, in the portal, and he chose to go to Colorado and stick around and show that he could be one of the best players in the country. Shows that in 2023, comes back again, shows it even more in 2024. He's confident, right? He's built his own brand, and I think is disingenuous for someone to attack a young man for being confident himself, for being raised to be confident, because I feel like at the end of the day, that's also what this is getting at. And it's also stupid, right? You don't want your quarterback to have confidence, right? You don't want your quarterback to exude or ooze confidence. Like this is the definition of brass. Self-assertive in a rude, noisy, or overbearing way. He, uh, Synonyms: cocky, arrogant. Um, Strong is another word that's used to describe Brash. So basically, this guy's saying Shedeur Sanders has too much personality and he's too confident. Until that becomes an issue, right? Until we get into his career, like if Shedeur Sanders, like this is a hypothetical. Say Shedeur Sanders is well into his career and all of a sudden he won't take coaching and he won't show up to practices or whatever. Like if Shedeur Sanders falls off the deep end of like being a good person, then obviously that's when I would be concerned. But he has shown no issues, right? He's shown that he works hard, he studies, he's smart, has a great IQ. And I do agree with Josina. I think he showed a lot of personality in those interviews. I think he shows a sense of humor that he doesn't always get to show. I think my favorite interview, or one of my favorite interviews, was there was a reporter who had, I'm not a chain specialist, so I don't know what it is, but like a little chain. He said it was off Amazon, so I assume it was like 20, $30. I don't know. I don't know the prices, so don't attack me in the comments. And he asked Shedeur, he goes, is this a good chain? Because obviously Shedeur always has like the massive chain, the bright, shiny gold chain, and like the Shedeur at the ST or S2 chains, right? Like Shedeur, he knows his way around the ice. This guy, probably not, right? He probably knows his way around the titanium or the whatever they make fake chains out of. I myself have a fake chain. But he asked Shedeur, he goes, is this chain good? And Shedeur goes, no, it's good for you, right? You wear the chain doesn't wear you. And like he was just being fun. And so for there to be one coach to come out of this and be like, oh my gosh, like this guy, get a load of this guy. So it'll be interesting to see. We'll figure it out eventually what team it is, right? We always do. There's always, and this is sort of my favorite part, or one of my, I guess it's like a favorite / least favorite part about the NFL pre-draft process is everyone was almost going to draft someone. Like the Saints were going to draft Patrick Mahomes, or this team was going to draft Tom Brady, but they decided not to. Like it always comes out. So we'll figure out who it is eventually. And at the end of the day, if I'm a NFL GM, right, and I look at Shedeur Sanders, I'm not an NFL GM, so I don't know what else these guys are looking for. But if I was, I'd be looking at, one, can he play? I think Shedeur Sanders is really good. I think he's a really good processor. I think the thing he could improve upon the most is his pocket presence or pocket awareness, because he did take a lot of sacks. But that being said, he's trying to extend plays, right? He never once threw his offensive line under the bus. He never once pouted. He never once, I think, and this is a big one, he never once quit on his team. And I think he could have, right? He could have, when things were getting tough, like when Colorado was eliminated from playoff contention, he could have quit on his team. When Colorado made a bowl game that wasn't like a New Year's Six bowl, he could have quit on his team, but he didn't. Shedeur Sanders never quits. So I like his determination. I like his grit. I think he's a smart player. I think he is a good leader. I think players gravitate to him. And I think, are there guys with stronger arms? Probably, but he uses his arm effectively. So I think Shedeur Sanders is the total package. To to agree with Josina. It is disappointing that someone came away with this evaluation of Shedeur, and I think it was bound to happen, right? I think there's, especially when the NFL draft comes around, there's guys on every staff who they want to be the guy that finds the flaw. Like there's always the guys who want to find the hidden gem, and then there's the guys who they want to poke a hole in the bubble of the superstar quarterback or whoever it is, so they could be like, remember, I called it. I said he wasn't going to be good. Like they want to be that guy, and so I think some people try really hard to be different, and I just don't always think it works out in the right way, because I think sometimes when you try hard to be different, sometimes you have to take the wrong approach, and this feels like the wrong approach because this is the only time we've heard that. So we'll just have to wait and see how that unfolds. Shedeur's smart move at the combine was not participating in the combine. I'll explain. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. This episode is brought to you by Roy. Attention, Locked On Buffs fans. Ever wished, you could directly support your favorite Colorado athletes and be a part of their journey. Now you can with Roy, the NIL app that puts fans in control. Before Roy, NIL deals were often handled behind closed doors, and fans like you didn't have a clear way to directly support the players you love. Now with Roy, you can make a real impact and feel closer to the athletes representing Colorado. With Roy, you get to choose the player you want to support, decide how much you want to contribute, get exclusive content straight from the athletes you back, and the best part is, if your player transfers, you get your money back. So it's a risk-free way to support, to show your support and make your voice heard. Support your favorite players directly and help shape the future of Colorado sports. Download the Roy app now from the App Store and start backing Locked On Buffs or Colorado athletes the way they deserve, with transparency, trust, and real impact. This is the future of college sports. Join it now by downloading Roy and supporting your favorite players. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so that way you don't miss out on a moment of the coverage. Let's talk about it. Shedeur Sanders' best move of the combine was probably not participating, because we already saw that he's getting docked for interviews, and whether or not, like the brash and arrogant one, I just feel like that's a bit far. I think that's a football coach who's old in his ways, if you know what I mean, and is willing to sort of go against the grain just for the sake of going against the grain. So I think he was just wanted to be like, I don't like this guy, so I'm just gonna, like, it's pretty crazy. That is the only person who said that. Now, there were other reports that Shedeur maybe wasn't giving full effort in certain interviews, but it wouldn't shock me if that's sort of a ploy to get to certain teams without pulling the Deion Sanders move, aka telling the New York Giants he won't take the Wonderlic test because he won't be there by the time they were drafting, which it was true. He was not there by the time they were drafting at 18. But regardless, I think Shedeur Sanders' best move of the combine was to go there and interview, to be available to as many media members as possible, right? He got to talk to a lot of people, talk to teams, got to show his personality, got to answer fun questions and stuff. But he also didn't throw, and he didn't run, and he didn't jump, and he didn't bench press, right? None of the quarterbacks bench press, but you know what I mean? Because, and I say this, Will Howard from Ohio State was on top of the college football world literally like a month and a half ago, right? He wins a title, leads Ohio State to a title. So they lose to Michigan. They go on and just ball out the rest of the season. They make it to the playoff. They beat the brakes off of Tennessee. Who else did they play? I'm trying to think. Right, Ohio State just had a nice path to the championship, and I'll pull up his numbers because I think Will Howard was sort of riding high on momentum in a way where I don't think he was going to be a first round pick, and I don't think he was ever going to be as good as Shedeur, but he figured out a way to sort of work his way into conversations of like, oh, wow, maybe this guy's not as bad as we thought. So they blow out Tennessee, they blow out Oregon, they beat Texas, and then they beat Notre Dame in the championship. And in those games, Will Howard was pretty much he was a factor, right? Across 4 playoff games, he threw for 5, 6, 8 touchdowns to 2 picks. And then he also rushed, also used his legs a lot. So Will Howard was, like I said, top of the mountain, right? Couldn't get any higher. Now, I don't think he was ever going to be pushing Shedeur or Cam Ward for that QB1 spot, but he decides to throw, and this is what I've been getting at, decides to throw at the combine, and it could not go worse, I think, right? He's throwing, he's missing high, he's missing low, he's missing left, he's missing right, he's missing north, he's missing south, he missed everything. It honestly looked like one of those days where if he was standing on the beach and he was trying to throw it to the ocean, he'd probably throw it to the street behind him and hit a car. Right? It's just one of those days where it wasn't his day. And there's two things I liked that Shedeur did. One, he didn't throw. Right? I think Shedeur Sanders and his team, specifically Coach Prime, who's probably heavily involved in all these decisions, they're not dumb enough to let Shedeur go out there and throw to guys, which, I mean, this isn't a slight on them. This is just how obvious it was, because you guys know I kept saying this. You know how dumb it would be for Shedeur Sanders to go throw to receivers he's never thrown to and risk struggling? Because imagine the headlines. Imagine the social media backlash if Shedeur Sanders went to the combine, threw, underperformed, and all of a sudden everyone was like, oh my gosh, this guy sucks, right? This is what happens when your dad's not the coach, right? Does it make sense? No. Would it have happened? Yes, because that's just how it is. So he doesn't throw. Great decision, because obviously you're throwing to guys you don't know. And at the end of the day, you only participate, and I think this is the perfect way to look at this, right? Only participate in the NFL Combine if you could gain something from the NFL Combine, right? If you are someone who's going to go number 1 overall, if you're just like, say, Caleb Williams last year. Caleb Williams could have thrown. He didn't, it was fine when he did it, right? But he could have thrown, right? And he could have gone 0 for 35, and they would have been like, he still has it, right? Caleb Williams was going number 1. Say he did terrible. Say he told a coach to F off or something. Still probably going top 5 because he was viewed as a generational talent. I don't know if Shedeur was viewed as a generational talent, but I do know that he had nothing to gain from the NFL Combine. Instead, he had more to lose. Same thing with Cam Ward. Same thing with all those guys that chose not to run the 40, whatever it is. They are in a position where they're going to go early in the draft, and there's nothing really for them to prove. So I like the decision not to compete, but not to sort of risk your draft stock. And then when Will Howard goes out there and absolutely flops because it just wasn't his day, people were hating on social media. So Shedeur, another great move, in which I don't know if this was like a calculated move or just him being a bro, but I think it's both. He said, I don't understand y'all hating on Will Howard. He just won a natty. It's hard to throw to wide receivers that you don't know. Everyone runs routes different. And then I saw another great point. Aside from, and I don't remember who said this, but aside from the guys running new routes you don't know, aside from the guys sort of, it's nerve-wracking, right? You're in a perfect environment. You're in your underwear. Like all these guys, you don't know them. You're throwing new footballs. Like they're slick. They haven't been broken in. It's just a lot of pressure put onto one sort of moment. And I just feel like it really wouldn't have paid off for Shedeur. So I think it was smart for him to not do it. And I also think him sort of defending Will Howard publicly, whether or not it was meant to be a ploy or like an attention getter, I think it would be one, but I think it shows that he's not this guy that people want to paint him out to be. When we come back, I'm going to give you my combine takeaways about all 4 Colorado players: Travis, Shedeur, Jimmy, and LeJohntay. This episode of Locked On Buffs, it's brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. There's no better place to get in on get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3. I feel like I never miss my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. It's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NFL. Or of the NBA. Of the NBA. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so that way you don't miss out on a moment of the coverage. We're like 10 subscribers away from 7,000, so I'd appreciate it if you guys could help me get there. Let's talk about how everyone did. Well, we'll start with the 2 easy ones. Travis, Shedeur. Travis, same thing as Shedeur, didn't participate in any drills. Same thing as Shedeur. I don't think he had anything to gain from the combine, right? He's a freak. He has a great catch radius. He's fast. He's athletic. Probably could gain some good weight. I think he's like listed at 170 or 180. I think his biggest thing is receiver or corner, right? I don't know if NFL teams are going to let him play both. Again, I always say I think they'll let him try it, but I think eventually when it comes to him not being on the field for certain things, a coach is just going to be like, you know what, dude, we need you on this side of the ball more than we need you on that side of the ball, and it's just going to be decided. But I think he interviewed well. I think a lot of people walked away being like, yeah, he's a good dude, right? Especially, which for him, I was excited to see that there weren't, at least publicly, girlfriend questions. I thought that would come up where people would be like, oh, what happened with you and your girlfriend? Are you guys blah, blah, blah? Like, I thought that would come up, honestly, because there's always weird questions at the combine. But I didn't see that. So I think for Travis, he sort of went there, didn't have to really do much, shows he's a good person, kept maintaining that he wants to play both ways. And at the end of the day, it'll work out how it works out for him. Shedeur, like I said, smart not to throw. I wouldn't have done it either if I was in his position. I think he interviewed with the media well. Obviously, the reports from insiders about how he did with certain teams, those are varying, right? There are certain guys who said, the CBS Sports guy said he was kind of throwing interviews with certain teams, which could be his way of trying to force his way to a team. And then there was some people who said they were really impressed. Like the Tennessee Titans were reportedly super impressed by him at the East West Shrine Bowl. So I think for Shedeur, he's going to throw it at the Big 12 Pro Day. He's going to throw to his guys. I think he'll be fine, right? I think this went probably as expected for him. There was no disastrous answers for either of them, so that's good. Let's go to Jimmy Horn Jr., right? I think Jimmy Horn is a guy that interest teams. I also think he's a guy that maybe doesn't test well. And you guys all know those kinds of people where it's like they're really smart and they don't test well. When it comes to the 40, Jimmy ran a 4.46, but I know he's faster than that. And I think Deion Sanders Jr. made a great point. If he had a technique for running the 40-yard dash, he probably could get in the 4.3s, maybe could get in the 4.2s. Jimmy Horn runs faster than pretty much everyone that's chasing after him. And that's all that matters, right? When he did the gauntlet drill, he did just fine. But the 40-yard dash, 4.46, vertical jump, 38 inches, broad jump, 10.8, 10-yard split was 1.54. LeJohntay was right there with him, 4.46, vertical jump of 32. So Jimmy's got a pretty decent vertical jump there. Broad jump of 10.1 for LeJohntay, 1.53 10-yard split. Listen, both LeJohntay and Jimmy are guys who I think are going to be gems, right? I think LeJohntay is a guy that I continuously hear a lot about. I think teams just love talking to him. My favorite answer of his was that he went to Colorado to show he could be a role player, which I think is him sort of knowing like he's not going to probably be wide receiver one right away. I'm sure he could be eventually, but he's not going to be a team's best receiver. And so he wanted to show that, hey, I'll be behind Travis Hunter and Will Shepard and these guys, and I'm still going to make my plays. Like I walked away from this past season thinking that LeJohntay Wester was probably the most trustworthy receiver outside Travis Hunter. And even then, LeJohntay was just always making big plays when Colorado needed him. So I think Jimmy and LeJohntay each held up their own. I think maybe a 40-yard dash improvement at the Big 12 Pro Day won't hurt, but the Shrine Bowl, they both were getting a lot of praise, and I think the Combine, they both got a lot of praise as well. So really, really strong Combine showing for all these guys, and I think probably couldn't have gone better. Maybe the rumors not being spread would be great about Shedeur, but at the end of the day, that's life. Thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Buffs, making me your first listen of the day. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so that way you don't miss out on a moment of the coverage. I will see you guys tomorrow.